Oh, sing, children of the world, come together and hear the call. Sing, children of the world, Islam will unite us all. Subhanallah walhamdulillah, wallahu akbar. Subhanallah walhamdulillah, wallahu akbar.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to another episode in our series talking about our schools, what is missing. With me in the studio, as always, for this series is Dr. Mamdouh Muhammad. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Just to remind the viewers that Dr. Mamdouh is a specialist in the field of education. He has various qualifications from different universities, worked in different universities, and he's a co-founder of a number of different schools around the globe, as well as authored a number of different books. Welcome back to the show, Dr. Mamdouh. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you for hosting
now, in
me
this
again.
series, this particular episode, we are going to be focusing on the criteria for success in schools. Now, as always, we want to link this with Islam. We want to find an Islamic basis for all our thoughts, really, and particularly with criteria for success. So, Doctor, can you give us a few examples of the criteria for success in Islam and how important that is?
Okay. Nobody can measure his success without having some criteria. And we Muslims are very lucky because most of the criteria for success for us had been designed for us by our Creator. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who put these criteria, and we try to measure ourselves against. For example, the issue of do good as much as you can. So it's open even for competition between human people. That, for example, today, since I woke up in the morning until now, how many things that I made are positive. For example, I attended Salat al-Subh in congregation. I recited some Quran. I helped my son to read some text and I corrected him. And I put pieces of advice to 2 or 3 people in the morning. I had an appointment here to come on time, and I came on time. Even if other people didn't come on time, but still I came on time. So these are things that, yes, every piece of this you will find that there's something in Islam that tells you, if you promise some person that you have to fulfill the promise. If you promise to come at 10, so come at 10 or even earlier than this. You're supposed to do salah in congregation. I didn't. So these are criteria for success. So I feel very comfortable that I met these criteria until now. And I wish that, inshallah, and I hope I will continue doing that. So on the whole, religion of Islam is based on this. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would find that in these verses, وَفِي ذَلِكَ فَلْيَتَنَافَسِ الْمُتَنَافِسُونَ, in such a thing that people need to compete with each other is in areas of doing something good and something beneficial. So every school would, if they don't have, at least there are some international criteria. And that's why you find something called international benchmarks.
Okay, before we go into this specifically to schools, let me just sum up. We're saying that Islam, in fact, has established a clear criteria, very plain for each and every worshipper, and that is obviously the important thing about it. That everybody uses that criteria to as a benchmark to evaluate their own selves. So, I'm going to ask you how important the establishment of a clear criteria is with regard to schools themselves.
Yeah. As I mentioned, as an individual, you don't know if you're making progress if there are no criteria. For example, I go to the classroom. Let me give you this example. I'm a runner. Every day I walk or I run in the street, right? So I walk and I run, and when I run, I feel that I am the best human being. I'm the best runner, not just in my country, but I think internationally. This is my impression about myself. But there are no criteria. But after a week, I found that 2 other people are running beside me. So we are 4 now running in the street. And now, I found myself that I am the last one, or one before the last. So I no longer have this image. First of all, it was fake speculation that I am progressing, because there were no criteria. But now there's another thing here. Some criteria here is that I was not the first. I was number 3 or number 4, right? So the criteria here is when you compare yourself with others, how are you doing? That's why we need to compare ourselves, our progress, whether as an individual or even a family or even a school or a country. We compare ourselves with others. And this would become more accurate if there's something called international criteria. For example, the record number in running or in the marathon last year was 9.3 minutes.
So what we're really saying here, Doctor, is that in fact we don't want to look in our sort of set the criteria in a local context. We're looking to an international context.
Yes, because we're living on the same world, on the same planet, so everybody's competing. So if you're comparing yourself locally, so these are the criteria of success that you set for yourself, for your school. But of course, your students may graduate from here and may join a university or another school somewhere else in the world. At that time, if your criteria is much less than the international criteria, you will find yourself in trouble, or your students in trouble. It's much better to measure ourselves against international criteria. And that's why there are international exams, like International Baccalaureate, for example, which makes every school eager and should do that. Should measure themselves against the average. Let's say that the international benchmark in science or in math or in English was 87.3. So this is the average. So when I measure my students, I see that where they are they above this average, on the same average, or less this average? So this is a criteria that you can measure yourself against.
Okay, so the importance of establishing a clear criteria first,
Absolutely.
Then making it measurable to standards which are
measurable,
international.
Is a key word. Yeah, because you need to measure it. Otherwise, you cannot. When we said that I was running by myself, there is no way for me to measure myself. But now I measure myself against the 9.3 minutes. So if I finish at 15 minutes, so I know how late I am.
So we're not kidding ourselves that we're better than we really are.
Yeah.
So the third thing, what kind of role does accountability play in this whole establishment of the criteria and measuring it? What role does accountability play here?
The accountability here, that when the parents would know that the international benchmark is this. That's why it's very important for the parents to be educated, to know about that. So if the international benchmark is 73%, they would come to the school principal and the whole school, and they would discuss the average of your students is much lower than the international. What are the reasons? Last year it was not like this. What happened? Is it because you got new teachers? Is it because you didn't make some training? Let's discuss the matter and see what are the causes that made this happen. So this is the type of accountability that the school should be held for.
And is this just for the parents, or perhaps is it for what can the students and the teachers benefit from this idea of accountability?
Usually the teacher would be part of the discussion, would be asked, why do you think that the school did not achieve well? Why didn't our students reach the standard? So the school, the teachers are part of the responsibility. However, the teachers would say that, for example, we have not taken any training for the last 3 years. So now we would know that the thing that caused this perhaps is training. There may be other elements, of course. They can say that the number of the students in the classes, right, is much higher than it was last year. Now we have in every classroom we have 30 students. But in the previous year we used to have 18 or 15, which makes a big difference. We would come back to, as parents, and discuss the matter with the principal and the leadership of the school, and we hold them accountable what is going on.
And I guess the teachers can use this criteria as well on themselves and in their own classroom to reflect on their own performance. Even.
And the teacher should be expecting these results to happen, because if they do the right assessment inside the classrooms, they would come up with results that would tell them they can predict what will the students do in the future when they take these international exams. This is the importance of making accurate assessment or accurate evaluation for the students during the school year.
We talked about setting the clear criteria. Just to touch on that once again, how important is it to be realistic about what you can achieve? Is that an important thing, or do we set the bar as high as possible? What's the rule here?
Not as high as possible. When we said that we compare ourselves internationally, so we have this bar. If it is last year 87, so that means we should target this. So this would be. If it next year, for example, it becomes 92, so we should target this 92. So we should go, because the bar has been raised, so we should. And again, even in Islam you would find that اتقوا الله ما استطعتم. As much as you can, be mindful of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and protect yourself. So this it gives you an area to all the time try to raise the bar.
Okay,
yeah.
So we're really going back to what we talked about in previous episodes, as well as this idea of incremental moving towards where you want to be.
Yeah.
And I think you have famous hadith about this.
Which is the خير الأعمال أدومها وإن قل. The best of the things that you do, the best of the deeds that you do, is the continuity of this, even if it is little. For example, if you get used to do such amount of task every day, it's much better for you to keep doing this for long time than to go up and down, to be inconsistent.
Okay, I'm going to stop you there just for a moment. We're going to go to a short break. We'll be back after the break, and we will continue our discussion with Dr. Mamdouh. Stay with us.
You have questions that bother you. What about issues of concern to you? Would you like to share things on your mind with us? Are you interested in solutions based on an Islamic perspective? Please join me live in Meet Your Advisor every Friday at 9 p.m. Mecca time, here on Huda TV.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to our series of Our Schools, What is Missing. In this episode we've been focusing on the criteria for success for any school. And just before the break we were mentioning a specific hadith with regards to setting the criteria for success. Generally we were saying that, Doctor, that we shouldn't set unrealistic criteria, unrealistic goals, but we should set them in an incremental way to move the school forward. Can we just reflect on that hadith once again?
The hadith is a little bit different from what we're saying here, but the hadith here focuses on the continuity. So it becomes a pattern in the school that you are doing this all the time. For example, last year you got 97%. This year you're getting 97%. The previous year 2 previous years you got 97, so I know that this is your level. But if one time you get 97% and then you go down to 73% and then you go up to 85, I said this is inconsistent. When you become consistent, it becomes very easy for us to know your level, where you are. You know, if you need extra support or if you need something, we can give it to you. Being consistent, so consistency is the key word here in my talk.
Okay, so one concern I think many schools might have is, you know, and certainly what I've seen from working in different schools myself, they have a number of different criteria and a number of different goals which seem very lofty, they seem very high and very noble. And then when you actually look into the actual school, there's a clear problem that it doesn't seem to have filtered down into the teachers, into no one seems to be working towards that noble, lofty criteria. Yeah. What's your advice to those sort of heads of schools who are trying to work that criteria throughout the school? How can they communicate and disseminate that information down the chain?
One of the things that usually is measured nowadays is, does the school share its vision throughout the whole school? We've seen some schools, and out of my experience, I've seen some schools that even the students know the vision of the school. Sometimes we go and meet with the students and we ask them, do you know about the vision of the school? They say yes, and we know this, and they tell you something very detailed. Of course, this is very high level school.
So we're talking about the best schools here, right?
Oh yeah, we're talking about best practices. We need people to learn from this.
So we'll focus on the best, and then we'll come to
of
the
course
opposite.
we can, from the best we come down. And the same thing, of course, if the students know that, so that means definitely the teachers would do that, would know the vision of the school. And sometimes you go to visit some schools and you will find that the teachers are almost repeating exact words, which is wonderful. That means all of them know the vision of the school. And I remember that I read about one of the factories in Japan. When people visited this factory and they started talking to one of the janitors at the door, tell us about your factory. And he started talking in the same language that the CEO of that factory said.
So this is in an ideal world.
Of course, this is an ideal world, because sharing the vision of the place, sharing whether it's a factory, whether it's an organization, which a school, so they need to share it. If they share it, not only sharing it, but they have to act upon it. So that's why there be level of consistency throughout all the teachers and throughout all the classroom. And this way we guarantee that, this is a model school. And that's why whenever you look at their progress, you would find it's almost consistent. Because they reach at that level.
So we've looked at the very best of best models, let's say. Let's contrast that with some bad examples that you've seen. What are the issues there? Why haven't they been able to disseminate this criteria throughout the school with everybody working towards this one sort of... they're united in working towards this goal, aren't they?
Yeah. In some cases you would find that the principal of the school or the owner of the school are just businessmen and they don't know the secrets of the job that they are doing. Or because they are business, they would select the principal to be one of their relatives, for example, and he or she is not specialized, and when she is trying to run the school effectively, she doesn't do that because she's not qualified. This is one example. Then hundreds of reasons behind it. Another reason is that perhaps the relationship between the leadership in the school and the school teachers is not good. So there's bad relationship, and that's why the communication is always miscommunication. Another reason is that the school does not pay attention to the training of the teachers. If they don't train the teachers, even if they have the best vision and the best mission, the right goals that they have selected, but if the teachers are not trained to achieve these goals, of course there will be a failure. So
and even understand them. Even understand.
Even understand.
Certainly, I mean, the school I work at, I don't understand what their mission is. I read the statement in English,
and you don't understand.
It's totally unclear. It's totally. It's like, you know.
or unrealistic at least.
Unrealistic, yeah.
Yeah.
So what are the best schools, what are they doing right?
I think we began with that. We said that they shared their vision. They put, first of all, their goals, realistic goals, which
clear
are
goals,
in
realistic,
harmony with international goals, international benchmarks. And this is temporary, as for example, they have 5-year plan. They want to achieve this, and the other 5-year plan is to go to another higher level. Yes, because of they need to recruit good teacher and to replace the other bad teachers. So each school is unique in this issue. And that's why we need to study each school separately.
Okay, so each school is unique.
Of course,
in
like
how
each family is unique.
Yeah, how that success is happening. Each school has a unique, perhaps, formula, which needs
but there are
attention.
some formulas in general that if they are adopted by these schools, they will go there. They will reach there. They will be there.
Okay, so we've said that first it's establishing clear criteria, then it's making those criteria measurable internationally, and then making that accountable.
And sharing this.
And sharing that throughout
with the teacher throughout the whole school, and making the school accountable for this. It's not just nobody is asking them what you're doing. We need to stop them to tell them, okay, there now. We need to know where you're going.
Okay, so let's talk about sub-criteria. What role does sub-criteria play in helping to drive people towards the end goal?
Yeah, it's very important. If you put a goal, let's say that I am going to finish this building in 2 years' time. This is the big goal, for example. I have to divide it. If I don't divide it, I will wait and come after 2 years, I will find that it's not finished.
Okay, and this is what sub-criteria is. What exactly is it?
To divide it into small, criteria, small measurable criteria. I would say, okay, which means that if I want to finish this building in 2 years' time, that means in the first 2 months, I will make the foundation. And after that, every month I will build one story or story in the building. So I would come that after 3 months, I will see, did I finish the first story after the foundation or not? The first floor after the foundation or not? So I can measure. These are sub-criteria here or sub-goals that would help me see the progress or the progression that I am making. Otherwise, if I don't do this, and I would come after 18 months, I find myself still in the 4th floor. And I need to finish 20 floors, which looks impossible. Why? Because I did not have these sub-goals from the beginning. The same thing is applicable in every school. The same thing is applicable in every classroom.
So that sub-criteria, how does that relate in terms of teachers? What should they be thinking about their sub-criteria and how that relates to the greater goal? Yeah,
when a group of teachers, I wouldn't say that each teacher by himself or herself.
So again, group work.
Together, group work. They study the curriculum after evaluating the previous curriculum, and they have seen the strong points and the weak points in it. Now they are enriching the curriculum. So they would say that and that's why the lesson plan is something very important in the life of a teacher. When I plan a lesson now, I know that, okay, so this lesson covers these skills and these pieces of data or information, right? So I would know where I am, and if I measure at the end of the month or at the end of the week, I make a quiz against these goals that I have made, so I can measure the progress that I'm making. So I know that if I covered 3% in 1 week, and I have such a number of weeks, that means that I can finish this after 30 weeks or 28 weeks.
So again, group planning,
evaluation, continuous evaluation, and measuring ourselves against these standards and these goals to see the progression that we're making. It's very important. Even in our life, you've seen some people, it's like most of the successful people, they make this planning. In their planner, the beginning they said, my goal by the end of this year is to do this and this and this and this. They put 5 or 6 goals in their lives. And I advise every viewer to do this.
Okay. Certainly.
Buy a planner and put your goals for this year. What do you want to achieve in this year?
Certainly a very important piece of advice, to set your own goals even.
Yes.
And most of the successful people seem to do that. Now, just before we come to a close, we've touched before on parents and their ability to empower the parents through this establishment of criteria. Can you just tell us a little bit about how important that is, and what parents can take away with a school with a strong criteria? What can they gain from that?
Yeah. Parents everywhere in the world need to be educated about their roles. You accepted to be a parent, so you are responsible. And you have to know that even if you're not responsible in this life, you will be responsible in the day of judgment. Your kids will hold you accountable in front of Allah. They will tell Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that it is my parents who did not do this to me, who did not do it. They didn't train me to do this. They didn't teach me this at this specific time. For example, the issue of salah, and this is a very important thing, right? As the Prophet ﷺ said, that the best time to train your kids to do the salah is when they are between 7 and 10. If the parents don't do this on the day of judgment, those kids will tell Allah that our parents did not train us to do the salah.
So how does that relate to the criteria?
Exactly. So the criteria here is that by the age of 10, your kids should be doing the prayer by themselves. This is the criteria.
In the same way for schools then?
Same in the school. They would say
by 10 years old?
By 10 years old, the students would be able to do this skill, this skill, this skill. Okay. So exactly, you can do it on yourself, in your family, in your school, in your factory, in the whole nation. You set the goals.
And of course it will allow the parents to evaluate the school itself.
Yeah, this is what happens in the best schools. They are part of the evaluation.
Okay, thank you very much, Doctor. Once again, pleasure to have you on with us here on Our Schools What Is Missing.
The pleasure is mine.
Thank you very much, dear viewers, for joining us. We hope, again, it's been beneficial for you. Certainly has been for me. We look forward to seeing you next time. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Oh, sing, children of the world, come together and hear the call. Sing, children of the world, Islam will unite us all. Sing, children of the world, come together and hear the call. Sing, children of the world, Islam will unite us all. Subhanallah walhamdulillah wallahu akbar. Subhanallah walhamdulillah wallahu